Hello, welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us. We would like to take just a few more minutes to allow others to log in, and we will get started in 3 minutes. Hello everyone, thank you for joining us here at the NAAF Request for Applications webinar. This is our third webinar, and we hope that you are eager to hear what we have to share, as we are eager to put the information out there and hear from you. A few things before we get started. If you have any technical difficulties with the webinar at any point, please reach out to us by phone at 479-445-6226. Again, that's 479-445-6226. If you get disconnected, please do try to join through the email registration link you received. Please know that there will be a recording of this webinar available on our website tomorrow morning, and you can always reach out to us at grants@nativeamericanagriculturefund.org. With that, I'd like to introduce you to our Regional Director, Tony Stanger McLaughlin. She is going to walk through the details of the request for application, and at the end, we will take your questions. If you do have a question, please go to your GoToWebinar control panel, look for the section that says questions, and type your question in there. You can submit questions at any point, but we will hold all of them until the end and address them all together. If you have any questions or concerns, reach out to us, please. And without further ado, I'll turn it over to Tony.
Hello everyone, my name is Water Runs Downhill. My English name is Tony Stanger McLaughlin, and I'm very happy that we already have so many people in attendance. And I would like to let you know right at the beginning that when we go through these slides, some of you are viewing it online, so you're seeing all of our slides, and others, they are just calling in. So it might seem like we're just reading all of the words on the slides because we don't know what we're saying, what we're talking about, but it's because there are individuals who are calling in, and we want to make sure that they get all the information on all of these slides. So with that, as Carly said, if you have any Q&A, you can submit those questions via the question box, or you can call in or email in at a later date or this afternoon when the call ends if you don't want to ask the question while we're live. We are going to do our best to answer the questions. We have been getting a lot of questions at the end of our slides, and on our next webinar, which is scheduled for the 17th, we're going to do a quick run through of these slides and a lot more time for Q&A, because as we've been progressing, we've been getting more and more Q&A as people are in depth in their application, in the application process. Next slide. An overview, if you want to go online to our website and see where this funding came from. It was part of the Cypre funds from the Keep Seagull settlement, and a little bit of history about that is located on our website at nativeamericanagriculturefund.org//history. And NAAF is governed by 14 trustees, and our CEO, Janie Hemp, and our CFO, Vince Logan. And for information on our trustees and our trust document, which established how we can give our funding out and the areas that we're focusing on, you can go and view all that information and the trust agreement at nativeamericanagriculturefund.org/trust agreement. Next slide. And again, more about the Keep Seagull v. Vilsack settlement. This was initially filed in 1999 on behalf of Native American farmers and ranchers for discrimination by USDA in the farm loan programs. This was credit-based. Majority of these claims were credit-based discrimination claims, and it actually began in the 1970s. The first claims were started years prior to the final or to the class being certified and the case moving towards resolution. When it finally did come to resolution, there was a $680 million settlement, an additional $80 million in debt relief, tax relief, and various equitable relief, in addition to changes in the farm loan program and policies. Following completion of the claims process and payment of all successful claims, there was approximately $380 million remaining, and that was not due to anyone's fault. It was because at the time, Native Americans, for many years prior to this, Native Americans were not included in the agricultural census, and there was really no way to determine how many claimants would come forward. So the class council shot for the stars, and they got a huge settlement on behalf of Native American farmers and ranchers, and that's why we had such a large remaining amount of funds. And it's turned into, after the settlement, it turned into a second payment for individuals that were prevailing claimants. And $38 million was part of an immediate distribution. And some of you are familiar with that. It was the Native American Agriculture Fast Track Fund, and some Some of you might be aware of fast track recipients in your area, but the fast track funds or nonprofits, CDFIs, educational institutions that existed during the class period. There was approximately $266 million that was used with the remaining fund that eventually established the Native American Agriculture Fund, which is scheduled to exist for 20 years and expires in September of 2038. Next slide. For additional information on and our overview, you can again go to our website. Funds were transferred to NAAF in December of 2018, NAAF being the abbreviation for the Native American Agriculture Fund, and our first request for applications launched on August 1st of this year. NAAF seeks to fund a wide variety of projects in 2019, and future requests for applications, or RFAs, may differ in scope and funding. To view our RFA, you can go to nativeamericanagriculturefund.org/grants. NAAF welcomes ongoing input from Native farmers and ranchers as well as eligible grant recipients. And you can take that survey at https://www.surveymonkey.com/r/8YZTQ3. And that survey is important because it allows us to understand the survey as overall in Native American agriculture. What areas are you seeking for funding? What areas do you see where there's gaps or areas where funds can be leveraged? Perhaps you've already gone on and looked at our application and the RFA, and you might see an area where it could be improved upon. Please take the time to complete that survey because we're always striving to meet the needs of Native farmers and agriculture and to meet growing trends. And that survey will allow us to have concrete information to move forward, and it helps us advise our trustees as well. Next slide. The mission of NAAF is found within our trust agreement, section 7. The trust mission shall be to make grants to eligible grant recipients described in section 8 to fund the provisions of business assistance, agricultural education, technical support, and advocacy services to Native American farmers and ranchers to support and promote their continued engagement in agriculture. Next slide. This slide is about our trustees. Our chairwoman is Elsie Meeks, Oglala Lakota, and our vice chair is Richard Williams, also Oglala Lakota. Clarice Mandan is a former lead plaintiff, and she's from the affiliated tribes. Porter Holder is also a lead plaintiff, and he's from the Choctaw Nation. Ross Racine is Blackfeet, and Jim Lattiser is from Turtle Mountain Band of Chippewa. Sherry Selway Black is Oglala Lakota. Monica Navamasa is Hopi. I know I said that wrong, I'm sorry. Paul Lemley is Yakima. Dr. Joe Hiller is Oglala Lakota. Charles Graham is Lumbee. Pat Gwynn is Cherokee. Mike Roberts is Tlingit, and Dave Archambault Sr. is Standing Rock Sioux. Next. Our RFA timeline, as we stated, we launched on August 1st of 2019 is when the grant cycle opened. We had our first webinar on August 13th, our second webinar on August 20th, and today's our third webinar. Our fourth webinar, which will focus mainly on questions and answers, is scheduled for September 17th at the same time. And Monday, September 30th, 2019 at 11:59 CDT, our RFA closes. Next. Eligible grant recipients. As required by the trust agreement, section 8A, eligible grant recipients are nonprofit organizations with IRS section 501c3 tax exempt status, or if such status has not yet been achieved, such organizations may apply for funding through a fiscal sponsor that has received 501c3 tax-exempt status. Educational organizations described in Section 170B1A2 of the Internal Revenue Code, community development financial institutions, CDFIs, including certified native CDFIs and emerging CDFIs, provided, however, that such CDFI is a tax-exempt organization described in Section 501c3 of the Internal Revenue Code. Next. Additional eligible grant recipients. An instrumentality of a state or federally recognized tribe, including a nonprofit organization chartered under the tribal law, or a state or federally recognized tribe that furnishes assistance designed to further Native American farming or ranching activities, provided that the use of any grant funds by such grant recipients shall be restricted exclusively to charitable and educational purposes. The grant recipient shall annually provide NAAF with audited financial statements and reports as required by NAAF, and if the grant recipient is a government entity, it shall agree to a limited waiver of sovereign immunity with respect to NAAF's right to enforce the terms of the grant, i.e. the amount of funding awarded, and the grant recipient must agree to comply with expenditure responsibility requirement. A note on the waiver of sovereign immunity: as we stated, it's only in the amount of the funding awarded. It's a limited waiver. And given that we launched on August 1st, and that information is included in our RFA, and it's also included in our questions, our online questions and printable questions on our website, any entity that might need that waiver has been given notice. And this notice will continue until this closes and beyond that time period, because you will not get notified that you need that waiver of sovereign immunity until you receive an award letter, because it has to be in the amount funded. So technically you have at least 90 days from August 1st and likely a little bit more buffer time after that. But if you know that you might need that, if you are an entity that needs a waiver, please begin to engage with your tribe right now so that they know that eventually when you receive an award letter, if you are chosen, you are going to need that waiver, and it will have to be timely. Next slide. Eligible grant recipients continued. Grants to fiscal sponsors. The trust may make grants to eligible grant recipients acting as a fiscal sponsor for organizations that would be eligible, but for the fact that the organization has not yet received a favorable 501c3 determination. Next. Additional eligibility information. Verification of eligibility is required. Applicants must provide documentation to prove eligibility. Applicants must serve Native farmers and ranchers. The terms farmer and rancher should be interpreted in the broadest context possible and are meant to include farmers of all types of food and fiber products and ranchers of all types of livestock. Next. Allowable use of funds. Applicants receiving funds will be required to use the funds to provide services to Native farmers and ranchers, including those seeking to become farmers and ranchers, and to support and promote their continued engagement in agriculture. The key areas that are allowed funding under the trust agreement are broadly described as business assistance, agricultural education, technical support, and advocacy services. Next. Allowable use of funds continued. The trust agreement controls the eligible uses and eligible entities for NAAF grant processes. The trust agreement prohibits grant funding for individual Native farmers and ranchers, but the trust may make grants to eligible recipients that make grants to individuals. See Section 9D of the trust agreement for additional information regarding that. Funds may be used for projects that are up to 24 months or 2 years in duration. They can be shorter than that, but they cannot be any longer than 24 months. And funds may be used for project support, scholarships, re-grants, loans, or capital expenditures. And funding for programs that strictly meet the emphasis area for the 2019 RFA will be given the highest priority for funding in the application period. Next. Non-eligible entities and projects. Non-eligible entities or projects include entities that do not provide business assistance, agricultural education, technical support, or advocacy services to Native farmers and ranchers. Work based outside of the United States, projects that do not provide assistance designed to further the success of Native farming and ranching or provide resources designed to further such success. Projects that seek funding predominantly to provide outreach on USDA programs and services. Those are non-eligible entities or projects. Next. Further non-eligible entities and projects. Projects that assist individual Native farmers and ranchers, but the services are not agricultural related. Use of funds that are not restricted exclusively to charitable and educational purposes described in IRS Section 170C2B. Use of funds for direct financial assistance to Native farmers and ranchers, such as addressing natural disasters. Those funds are provided by USDA. Next. Additional non-eligible entities and projects. Use of funds for litigation. Use of funds for direct lobbying or political activity as defined by IRS, efforts to influence legislation. However, other forms of advocacy may be allowable. Entities that are educational organizations but do not have an established record of working with, by, or through Native farmers and ranchers are not eligible for funding unless they partner with a Native-controlled educational organization, and such Native-controlled educational organization is the lead applicant on the project. Next. Entities that have received fast-track funding pursuant to a previous call for applications in 2016, which was subsequently funded in 2018, are ineligible for additional funding from NAAF for the same project activities funded under the fast track funding until expiration of their fast track funding period in October of 2021. They may seek funding for new projects or continuations of work funded earlier, but cannot receive funds for the same work previously funded through the fast track. When interpreting the scope of the RFA and in light of the language in the trust agreement, we are not allowed to consider applications by entities that are community-based organizations that do not squarely meet the definitions of eligible entities in the RFA. But these types of organizations can partner with eligible entities. Next. Access to credit. Funding for programs that strictly meet the emphasis area for the 2019 RFA will be given the highest priority for funding in this application process. Moreover, since the central issue involved in the Keep-Siegel litigation involves issues at the core of access to credit, additional consideration will be given to those entities that have as one of their specific targeted outcomes the improvement of access to credit by Native farmers and ranchers. Next. Combination projects. Applications that combine focus areas, for example, projects combining business assistance with technical support or agricultural education with business assistance, will receive additional consideration over projects that are singular in focus. Value-added agriculture includes all types of processes by which value is added to raw ag products or raw hunting or gathered products. NAAF will fund educational and advocacy projects that ensure solid educational information is provided to those developing policies and to Native farmers and ranchers. NAAF will not fund projects seeking to provide educational opportunities or degree programs for Native students that are not directly involved in or focused on the agricultural science in the broadest context possible. Next. 2019 funding areas. NAAF has determined that there will be 4 primary priority areas and an additional 4 special emphasis areas for which funding will be provided during the 2019 funding cycle. Next. Priority funding areas, CDFIs. Funding applications are sought from CDFIs or native CDFIs meeting the definition of eligible entities that currently provide agricultural lending to native farmers and ranchers. These entities are not required to provide any specific percentage of their available pool for lending to native farmers or ranchers, but should have a demonstrated activity in this lending area. Next. A pool of $2 million will be made available to fund projects proposed by those eligible entities that can provide proof of a current agricultural lending portfolio or a demonstrated need through public input from their service area that such lending opportunities are needed by native farmers and ranchers they serve. There is no set limit on the amount of total available funding for any one project of the total $2 million. A single CDFI or native CDFI may seek, but additional consideration will be given to those applicants who seek to serve the broadest number of potential native farmers and ranchers within the scope of their requests. Next. Educational organizations. Funding applications are sought from educational organizations meeting the definition of eligible entities that currently provide and have in place advanced agricultural business classroom training, or who are ready to provide advanced agricultural business classroom training. The training shall be made available to native students of the educational organization and can be provided as a certificate program or a degree seeking program, and should cover such topics as agricultural economics, agricultural financing, agricultural marketing, hedging, futures, trading, agricultural entity selection, risk management, food safety, agricultural law and policy, supply chain logistics in agriculture or related advanced agricultural business areas. Next. This funding may only be used to support the provisions of such targeted training to native farmers and ranchers. If the project includes a FERTEP faculty member, such faculty member must be in the lead on the application, and the project funds are to be used not for salary expenses, but for program expenses, such as travel assistance in the classroom, in the training setting, program participant expenses, and the like. Next. Funding will not be provided to proposed projects in this category if those being served in the classroom or the certificate program, online or in person, are not majority native farmers and ranchers. A total of $2 million in funding is allowed for this target area of funding. There's no upper or lower limit on the amount of funds requested. Overhead limitations apply. Next. 501c3 organizations. Funding applications are sought from nonprofit organizations meeting the definition of eligible entities within this request for application. These organizations may seek funding for any type of project that is allowable under the framework of this request for applications. The nonprofit organizations must provide proof that they currently serve native farmers and ranchers. They are required to reflect the percentage of their larger portfolio of activities that are focused solely on the need of native farmers and ranchers. Next. The nonprofit organizations may seek funding for enhancement of their own knowledge in the food and agricultural sector to encourage their employees and staff to have deeper understanding of the agricultural sector and needs of native farmers and ranchers. However, the internal capacity development funds sought cannot be the majority of their proposed activities or budget for which funding is sought. There is a recognized need for all nonprofit organizations serving native farmers and ranchers who are seeking success and sustainability in the agricultural sector to have greater knowledge of business assistance, educational lending, finance, technical, legal, risk, and related issues facing such farmers and ranchers. Next. There is an available pool of $2 million for projects in this category and no upper limit on the amount of funding sought for any particular project. Higher consideration will be paid to those entities that have a singular focus on native farmers and ranchers as their primary stakeholder group, those organizations that have experience in agriculture, are experienced in the needs of native farmers and ranchers as demonstrated by an established history of serving this audience. If the applicant is a startup nonprofit organization, their fiscal sponsor is required to provide proof of service to Indian country or the native farming and ranching community. Next. Tribes. Funding applications are sought from tribal governments or instrumentalities of tribal governments as specifically described within the context of eligible entities as described within this request for applications. Funding applications are being sought from the narrow area of value-added agricultural enterprise development. Funding can be sought for feasibility studies, the securing of architectural, engineering, legal, or other technical advisors for future value-added agricultural enterprises, provided that those tribal governments seeking funds are shovel-ready. Next. Tribes must be prepared to move to the next step towards investing in and creating value-added infrastructure that native farmers and ranchers need in order to secure or maintain access to current or future markets, expand products available for the market, obtain the specialized technical support necessary in order to access or maintain presence in markets. Next. Value-added agriculture has unlimited possibility for growth for native farmers and ranchers and tribal economic development activities. Because of this unlimited possibility for growth, NAAF is interested in targeting investments this funding cycle on ensuring that proper feasibility studies are done to support the ultimate success of project ideas, that proper analysis of technical, legal, and other significant components of proposed value-added projects are supported, and that the use of the available funds be targeted on the ultimate success and stabilization of native farmers and ranchers who would use such native-controlled infrastructure for product development and market access. Next. There is an available $2 million for projects in this area. All projects should seek to limit their applications to no more than $75,000 in total budget funding sought. NAAF will entertain higher amounts in the request, but those entities that stay within the limit identified will receive higher consideration for funding. Next. Special emphasis funding. NAAF is also seeking applications in 4 key special emphasis areas. These areas have been determined as important and of high interest among survey respondents and are also considered foundational concerns important to the underpinning of a strong and sustainable food system in Indian country. These areas are traditional foods and food sovereignty programs, hemp production analysis, youth programming, the agricultural sciences. NAAF will fund projects for no more than $75,000 per project in this area, and NAAF intends to provide a total of $5 million in funding in this area. Next. Traditional foods and food sovereignty. NAAF will provide funding for a small group of projects focused solely on the opportunities to establish a new focus area of an existing food sovereignty or traditional foods program, explore scaling up existing food sovereignty or traditional food programs to increase acreage under production involved within those programs, or to expand the scope of those scaling up activities already in place, or secondary or follow-up activities to implement an existing food sovereignty assessment process. Next. Hemp production analysis. NAAF seeks proposals in a very narrowly focused area to explore the potential for industrial hemp production and value-added activities among tribal communities. While being prepared to engage in a new national production system for industrial hemp is important, NAAF firmly believes that to do so without proper analysis of the myriad of business, regulatory, or production issues is problematic to the success of those seeking to engage in this area. Next. Therefore, NAAF is seeking to fund a group of projects that can be focused on any of the following areas. Partial funding for the project feasibility and market analysis studies for emerging industrial hemp crop production. Partial project feasibility and market analysis for the emerging value-added hemp production manufacturing businesses. Analysis of transportation, testing, self-regulation, and tribal government regulatory needs in order to engage in the market, or development of tribal plans authorized under the 2018 Farm Bill for regulation that will support tribal self-governance in the emerging industrial hemp industry. Next. NAAF will fund projects of no more than $50,000 to $75,000 per project. NAAF intends to provide a total of $5 million in funding in this area, and NAAF will not entertain funding for CBD-related production or analysis, as the emerging medical and labeling regulatory issues facing CBD are complex and the regulatory environment at this point in time is too premature and uncertain. Next. Youth programming. NAAF believes that the presence of Native youth in agriculture is important to the continued growth of Native food systems, and to that end are seeking projects that focus on the intergenerational shift that is happening across Indian country. These projects can include hands-on food production, support for 4-H, FFA, or other youth programs in the community or school, youth-led community projects, youth ag councils, travel scholarships so that Native youth can participate in agricultural training or leadership programs outside their own community, or connect with other Native youth in agricultural programs. Next. NAAF is also interested in investing in programs that provide information and guidance to those Native youth who are interested in choosing food and agriculture, farming and ranching, or food system businesses as their career choice. NAAF is seeking to fund small projects in the range of $25,000 to allow as large a number of projects to be funded as possible. NAAF intends to provide a total of $5 million in total funding in this area. Next. Agricultural sciences. NAAF is interested in providing funding through scholarships to attend existing agricultural science programs, regardless of the type of degree awarding institution, or regardless of whether the educational program is undergraduate, graduate, professional degree, legal, veterinary, or other agriculture-related profession or training in agricultural business-related fields. The agricultural sciences, including technical as well as the economic and business areas, are important to the future of Native agriculture. Next. NAAF believes that development of a bench of agricultural-related professionals is critical to the continued growth of this sector within our communities. To that end, we are interested in applications of at least two types. Programs that are broad scholarship programs for individual students that are focused on competitive annual scholarships or stipends to attend agricultural science programs regardless of location, are programs that are single or multiple institution-based agricultural science programs focused on recruitment and engagement of Native students for a specific degree program or a specific course of study. Next. NAAF is also interested in programs that specifically focus on the needs to advance Native students from undergraduate programs into graduate or agricultural professional degree programs, or on programs that focus on national needs such as veterinary programs or pre-veterinary programs, but projects across all technical and agricultural sciences are important, and such applicants are encouraged to apply. NAAF intends to provide a total of $5 million in funding in this category. There's no upper budget, or $500,000 in this funding category. There is no upper budget request limit to any individual applications received. So for all the special emphasis areas, 500,000. So sorry if I said 5 million previously. It's 500,000 in these categories. Next, points to consider in the application. The scope and nature of services previously provided to Native farmers and ranchers. The scope and nature of the services you plan to provide to Native farmers and ranchers with award funds, how your request award amount fits within the overall budget of your organization, and how your work integrates community accountability and Native leadership. Next. Steps you will take to ensure the funds will be used for the purpose stated in the award proposal, and whether your organization is based in a Native American or a Native community that you are serving, and whether you are in service to Native farmers and ranchers in that community, or whether if your organization is not Native-led, you have a dedicated Native programming effort. Whether your organization has a strong set of leaders on board or board members who are representatives of the community and are accountable to the community that is being served. Next. Criteria for review. Proposed results. Farmer and rancher demand, team organizational capacity and collaborators, impact on access to credit, results, innovation, wide application, and replicability. Next. Mandatory documents. Organizations that are tax exempt must include formal documentation of the entity's tax status or other basis for eligibility. An applicant will need to submit a mandatory copy of a resolution from its governing body, i.e. Board of Directors or Board of Trustees or Tribal Council, depending on the applicant type, and the resolution must state a description of the services the applicant will provide to Native American farmers and ranchers, a statement of the authority or approval of the applicant to apply for funding from NAAF for the purposes intended. Next. Use of funds. Should the applicant receive an award, it will be used solely for the purpose which meet the following three requirements. A. The purpose provides assistance designated to further Native American farming or ranching activities. B. The purpose is what was set forth in the application for funds. And C. The purpose is encompassed by Section 170C2B of the Internal Revenue Code. Should the applicant receive an award, the funds will be used as funds for the purposes stated in the application. No existing funds will be diverted away from that program if the applicant for funds are received. Next. Project budget tips. Reflect only funding requested from NAAF. Please use the required format for project budgets. Required formats are available for download from the NAAF website at www.nativeamericanagriculturefund.org/grants. NAAF budget guide, which includes the NAAF budget guidelines, the NAAF budget template, NAAF project budget sample, and NAAF budget narrative sample. You will find those on the application, in the application if you are applying online, and if you are applying via paper application, those are available on our website. Next. Project budget tips continued. Include at the top of the budget your organization's name, project name, and the requested grant period in months. Separate columns are required for year 1 and year 2 if you are requesting funds for more than 1 year. Applicants are required to identify the project budget narrative, the project activities that will relate to the various line items in the budget requested. Next. Before you make a PDF of the budget, don't forget to wrap the text so that all your explanations in a single cell show up and there isn't any cutoff. Check your math in your Excel document and make sure all of your numbers in a column are visible and not cut off due to formatting. If your budget runs onto more than one page, include the column headings on the second page. Next. Project budget. Budget categories include personnel and include each person's title, annual salary, and the percentage of time spent, indicating which proposed NAAF-funded activities will require what percentage of time. Direct costs, meeting and travel, indicate the number of meetings or trips the proposed NAAF-funded activities supported by each trip. The specifics on how your numbers were calculated include travel costs for one grantee meeting should your project be selected for funding. That grantee meeting will be a convening of all the successful grantees. Supplies include specifics on cost and which proposed NAAF-funded activities will be supported. Consultants indicate the number of hours, the hourly rate or stipend honoraria, and which proposed NAAF-funded activities will be supported. Printing publications, be specific about the number and types of materials and which proposed NAAF-funded activities will be supported. Next. Intermediary funds, re-grants, loans, and scholarships. Be specific concerning the costs associated with the re-granting, lending, or scholarship activity. Indirect cost. All applicants will be limited to no more than 15% allowable indirect or administrative costs. Next. How to apply online. Before we moved on into the how to apply online process, I want to go back to a mistake I made earlier when I was presenting. I said 5 million for the special emphasis areas. Those are capped at 500,000, not 5 million. Maybe in the future it will be 5 million, but right now it's 500,000. So if you're taking notes, make sure to go back and adjust that. Those are capped at 500,000. And within each of those special emphasis areas, there are also limits depending on what type of funding you're applying for. So in some of them it's 50 to 75,000, and others it's 25,000. So all of that information is on our website. It's in the RFA. So be sure to go check out our website when you are completing your budget. Now moving on to how to apply online. NAAF utilizes a grant website company that many other nonprofits use. So some of you, especially those that have applied for fast track funding, are aware of the process of applying online. In order to get to the site to apply, you have to go to our website. And when you go to our website, you will see the page. For those of you that are online today, you will see this page on the right, and it's our grants page, and you can see a link that says start application. This section of our webinar is teaching you specifically how to apply online. We do take paper applications, although we prefer the online applications. You can go online and review all of our questions and request to apply with a paper application, but you must meet all of the requirements of those that are applying online. So all applications are directed to our grants webpage. And next slide. Once you get on and you click that start application, it takes you to this page, and this is the logon page. The link to the logon page for the Native American Agriculture Fund application is found on the grants page of our main website, nativeamericanagriculturefund.org/grants. Application instructions. In order to access the online application system, you must register in the system by clicking the Create Account button on the logon page. Please note that applicants are the only users that complete the registration process. Please note duplicate applications from the same organization will be flagged. And please note that the email you use when creating an account will become your username. You can see on the right of the page, when you go onto the logon page, we have some instructions. We encourage you to review all of our documents prior to creating an account and starting an application. because some people might want to just see what the questions are before they actually start the application itself, and you can find those on our website instead of starting an application and then realizing that maybe perhaps this type of funding isn't going to be something that you want to pursue. But in order to keep our records correct and our numbers of applicants, we'd prefer that you go online, read all the documents, and then go log on and create your account. And again, all of that information is found on our website. And if you have any questions during this process, you can email grants@nativeamericanagriculturefund.org. Next. Creating a new account is a multi-step process. The first section collects the organizational information. Once all required fields are entered, select Next will bring you to the next section. Then you will complete the user information. And this is meant to capture the applicant's information or the information of the person completing the registration process that will be submitting a request. If the applicant's mailing address is the same as the organization's, the copy address from organization button can be utilized, and it will automatically pull information from above and include those in the address fields in this section. Again, please note that multiple emails from the same organization will be flagged. So if you have an individual that is going on to the logon page, we prefer that that person be the only person that is within the system, or that if you try to use your email address multiple times with other information, that will get flagged. If you do have an issue with your email not being recognized and not allowing you to move on to the next slide, then you can email us and we will get back to you and fix those technical issues right away. Next slide. New account continued. The email address entered in the email username field becomes your username in the system. For this reason, an email address may only be registered into the system once, as the email address is the applicant's unique identifier. After you fill out the first section, you'll be asked to continue to fill out executive officer information as well as organizational information. Executive officer information. First, you must indicate if you are the organization's executive officer or enter the information on behalf of the executive officer. Some applicants will enter an executive officer as the main point of contact. Therefore, these staff members should not use their own email, as emails become usernames. Instead, they should use the emails of the person who will access the site and become the main point of contact. Next. Additional account information found on the logon page is, as we said, your username, executive officer questions, additional executive officer questions, and finally a password. Once you've completed all of these sections, you will hit the submit button on the bottom right of the page and click this. Once you click that button, it will ask you to confirm your email. Next. Upon clicking create an account, an automatic email is sent to you directly to the email you entered in your user information logon field. This automatic email is a system default email and cannot be changed. You will land on the confirmation page where you are asked to confirm that you received the automatic confirmation email. The confirmation email can be resent if necessary to ensure system emails are being received. And this is important because later on in this process, we will send out emails regarding the closing dates of the application, and also we will utilize that email to indicate whether an award has been, whether you will receive an award or not. If you have issues with your email, again, you can contact us at grants@nativeamericanagriculturefund.org and we will work to resolve your logon issues. Next. Once you've created your account, you can then enter through the logon page. And it will look, for those of you that are on your computer, this will be what this logon page will look like. It will show you the application's opening and closing date, and you will see a blue apply button. You then can punch on the apply button and it will take you into the application where you can answer each of the application sections that are identified as the areas of funding that you are seeking. Next. Creating an account is a multi-step process. Once you start your application, you will have a series of questions and fill in the blank sections, as well as upload document questions. Depending on what type of funding and how many projects you are applying for, you will have access to all or some of the questions. If you check the box no on a section, you will not see the questions associated with that area of funding. For example, if you are applying for targeted funding only, you will not see the questions for any special emphasis area funding. Your applications are automatically saved. We've had a few questions come in, people worried about their applications not being saved. It automatically saves, and once you exit, it will save whatever progress you have within your application. Next. Uploading documents. You can only upload PDF documents, and you will be asked to save project budget templates for each project or area of funding you're applying for. These links can be found within the application. You click them, download the documents, fill them out, then upload them back into your application in a PDF form. So there's a link within the application. If you are not applying online, we will send you the documents that are uploaded into this online site. But if you're applying online, then you simply click that link and it takes you to view the templates and the narrative samples. We also have a size limit on those PDFs. So PDF must be in PDF format and must meet our size amount. Next. Completed applications. Once you've completed your application and push the submit button, you'll be taken back to your dashboard. In the future, this is where you will see application status updates and finally your approval or denial status. Approval letters will be mailed out with further instructions and final amounts of each award to successful applicants. This is what your application dashboard will look like. And this was a sample that I did, so you see my name there, but you'll have active requests. You'll also, eventually you will see whether your application has been, first you'll see if it's been successfully received, and then you will see if there's any other communication that we need to send, or your approval or denial will be located on your dashboard. Next. Again, our critical dates for NAAF's 2019 requests for applications are that we opened on August 1st, 2019, and this RFA closes on September 30th, 2019 at 11:59 p.m. CDT. Next. Our website to find the RFA, Q&A, and TA is our main web page where you can access all the essential documents, including the RFA and Q&A. And that is www.nativeamericanagriculturefund.org/grants. And our email for information and technical assistance is grants@nativeamericanagriculturefund.org. Next. Our phone number for any assistance is 479-445-6226. The phone line is open Monday to Friday, 8 to 4 p.m. CDT, and you can leave a message at any other time. Next. Paper applications. Using the online application portal is preferred. However, paper applications can be submitted as well. Paper applications must meet all requirements specified within the application, including character limits as well as page limits. Please do not submit both an online application and a paper application. Paper applications must be submitted and dated by September 30th, 2019. Our address is 534 West Research Center Boulevard, Suite 220, P.O. Box 1427, Fayetteville, Arkansas 72701. Again, our address is 534 West Research Center Boulevard, Suite 220, P.O. Box 1427, Fayetteville, Arkansas 72701. Next. Our next webinar is going to be available on September 17th, and you can see a link to register for that GoToWebinar. That webinar, we will go through our slides quicker because we are trying to reserve as much time on the September 17th webinar to answer questions. Next.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for sitting with us through the webinar. I'd like to encourage you at this time to go to the questions section of your GoToWebinar control panel and submit any questions you have to us. I'd like to thank Tony for walking through all of that information, and then welcome our CEO, Janie Hemp, to the line. She's going to go through the questions that we've already received. Janie, is there anything you'd like to say before we start?
I just want to encourage everyone to put September 30 on your calendar and just make sure that you remind yourself that you're in the month of September. I've spent many years applying for grants myself. I know we all have a tendency to wait till the last minute, but I encourage you to go ahead and go into the system and get registered. As Tony shared with you, it does automatically save your work. So it is always good to get a running start at these sorts of things. And I also want to make sure that you know that we have added a fourth webinar. We're going to do a kind of abbreviated version of actually walking through the slides. We're not going to take you on an hour process like we have been doing. And we're going to leave a lot more time for kind of last minute questions and answers. So just mark September 17th on your calendar and register for that webinar if you're interested, and just know that in the meantime we'll also accept any questions that you might have either via email or by telephone. So just don't hesitate to give us a ring or throw us an email, and we'll do our best to answer your technical questions. But I just encourage everyone to mark the deadline for the closing of the application period on your calendars and go ahead and get in the system and get your work underway. So we're excited to actually have this first request for applications open right now, and we're looking forward to seeing what you send our direction. So let's look at any questions. Oh, one last thing. We have amended our frequently asked questions. I have given those to Carly. Carly's going to put them on our website, and she's just told me that they're already there. So there are amended, updated FAQs, frequently asked questions, that are already accessible to you if you go onto the website and take a look at the document dated August 30th, right? So just be aware that there's the first version of the FAQs, but now we have an updated version. We're going to be doing that as well after this webinar and the 17th. We'll do one last updated version of frequently asked questions right after the 17th webinar, so that people have the last set of unique new questions that they might need. So with that, let's open it up. Thanks, Tony, also for your excellent walkthrough.
And while we're on that, more information. So if you go to our grants page on our website and you scroll down to our FAQ section, the first button is the original one. The second button says FAQ updates 8/30/19. That's what you want to click on. The first 12 pages are the original FAQs, and then you'll see the additions. Let us know if you have any questions on that. So let's get started with our first question from today's webinar. We are a startup nonprofit and are currently going through the 501c3 process. The last tribal council meeting before the NAAF deadline is set in 3 days, and we need to secure all required documents. What kind of document do you need from the council to show we are an instrumentality? Would a tribal resolution and/or letter of support be necessary, and how should that be worded to satisfy your requirements?
What we're looking for on any documents like the ones you mentioned are that it be on the right letterhead. So if your tribal council is going to acknowledge and authorize that you're applying as an instrumentality of the tribal government, then it would need to be on your letterhead, obviously. It would need to be signed by whoever is an authorizing official at the tribal government. And worded in an appropriate way for your tribe. Every tribe has their own way of doing that, and we're not going to presume to second guess what each tribal government's preferred language is. So what we're looking for is something that's signed by an authorized official, is on the letterhead of the authorizing entity, and in the body is directing us to the pertinent information that you are an instrumentality and you have been recognized as such. If you need more information, and authorized to actually submit the application, which is an important component. If you want to include language that indicates that by resolution the tribal government is supportive of the application and all of the particulars of it, feel free to do so, but we can get by with just the authorizing information. If folks want to adopt this via a resolution and actually submit the actual resolution, we're capable of taking that as well. So we're allowing you to tailor that to your own tribal government requirements. So that's what we're looking for.
Do you want the budget spreadsheet itemized?
To the extent that you can, yes. As much itemization as you can, but I'm not inclined, and we're not inclined to want you to determine how many pages you're actually going to copy a year from now. I hope there's some eye rolling going on out there, because some grants that you apply for actually want you to get that deep into the weeds. For our purposes, for that particular, like printing or publications, whatever you're going to budget is all well and good for us. We don't need to know the cost per page, but itemize as deeply as you can.
For the targeted funding narrative, do you want an overall narrative for all the projects that fall under that category, or individual project narratives?
I'm assuming by the nature of the question that you're looking at an application that will have perhaps multiple budgets and multiple projects within the budgets, within the narrative. And if so, you need to make sure that you don't clump them all together. Make sure that you actually separate them enough so in the body of the narrative that we can discern which narrative is attached to which budget. And just call us if you have any questions along the way as you get closer and closer, and we'll be happy to walk you through some of those items. But just lay it out logically, and lay it out so that someone coming cold to your application will be able to follow the breadcrumbs.
Can project goals, objectives, and activities be bullet points?
Absolutely. Yeah, being succinct is really important. Although, some of us like to tell stories in our narrative, so that's okay too. But if you want to present what you're going to be doing in that sort of bulleted format, that's fine with us. Just make sure we've got enough information to be able to discern what it is you're actually proposing to do.
What is the difference between milestones and results and outcomes? They are two separate questions on the application, but are similar.
Milestones really, when I do project work, I like to think of milestones as being those sort of steps in my ultimate project that will reach all the way into what my projected outcome might be, or my results. And some people use outcome and results interchangeably. You can get deep into the weeds around these evaluation components and around the components and logic models around grant making. We did not choose to go too deeply into that space because of lots of reasons. Number one is we wanted to keep this grant making process clear and focused on what we're trying to do in the project and not necessarily on the methodology for how we get there. But when you're looking at results and outcomes you hope to achieve with regard to working with any farmer and rancher, not just native farmers and ranchers, for me, it's always been, what do we hope to impart to farmers and ranchers? How do we hope to help them achieve success in their operation? Those are and how do you actually demonstrate that? How can you as a 501c3, through what you're doing with them, actually reflect upon their success and how it is achievable or achieved at the end of the project? So milestones to me are just the steps that you're taking towards that ultimate goal of success and improvement of native farmers and ranchers' ability to stay and keep and enter into agriculture and food production. And so we're going to be working to over the years on some other ways that we can measure this moving forward. For this first request for application, we wanted to just get some basic information from folks around milestones, projected outcomes, projected results, so that we could move the needle, if you will. But we're going to be working with some folks with expertise and knowledge around farming and ranching milestones towards success. And we're going to be working with all of our grantees, but also our potential grantees over the years that NAAF is open for business, and working to do whatever we can to assist all of our grantees to be able to function in a grant-making world in a much better way, particularly when you're trying to seek and use grant funds to assist farmers and ranchers. It's not always the same because our audience needs are unique, and sometimes it's difficult to quantify or to even put quality assessments around those kinds of terminology. But we're in it with you, and we're going to make sure that we keep working with all of the eligible entities so that we can kind of lift all boats in this particular area. So just do the best you can to actually identify milestones, outcomes, and results. But understand that this is a moving target, and we're going to all be working together to up all of our games in this particular area. I hope that makes sense. Also, before you send me this last question, whoever is still on, I just need to make sure that if you all or any of you who are listening or involved in the webinar are contemplating doing a written application, please be sure that you include your phone number and an email. Otherwise, it might be difficult for us to get a hold of you if we actually receive your written application, but that kind of identifying information isn't included on it. It may seem sort of common sense and logical, but sometimes folks get in a hurry and they just send something off. And just remember and check maybe a cover letter or something that has that kind of information on it if you're going to submit it in writing. The system, if you use the Found system, will automatically gather it, but we just wanted to make sure that anyone who submitted a paper application sent that identifying information in too, so that we have it. Thanks. All right, Carly, next question.
Do you require organizations to have completed an audit prior to applying? If applicable, how recent should the audit be?
We've already received a couple of questions about this, I think by email. And what we have told folks is, Some organizations are required to have audits if they accept a certain level of funding from the federal government, let's say. Some organizations don't have to have audits, particularly because of the type of legal entity that they are. Some organizations choose to have audits so that they can make sure that their financials are all in order and that their policies internal to their organization are as clean as they can be. And so we cannot presume to know which organizations are going to apply or are covered under which requirements. So what we need from you, if you've not had an audit done because maybe you're brand new and you haven't reached the federal threshold for amount of funds that have to come in, and it's pretty high, then just let us know via an attachment that you can upload that you have not undergone an audit yet. And that will at least give us a signal that you either are not legally required to have one as yet, or you're just not long enough in your life of the organization to have one. So just give us a signal, and we'll go from there.
We would like help determining whether a project is special emphasis or targeted value added. With guidance, our organization will be building and testing 2 hemp homes, one built with hempcrete blocks and one with poured hempcrete. We'll also be contracting with an organization for agricultural technical business advisor to complete a feasibility marketing study to expand value-added hemp housing production in our region. We would not ask NAAF for more than $75,000. Would you recommend that we apply under targeted tribal value-added or special emphasis hemp production analysis, or both?
I think that is not a call I can make for you, first of all. Second of all, it sounds to me like you could fit under either. But third of all, I just remind you to make sure that you signal to us what benefit your project would have to Native farmers and ranchers. That's an important thing to close the loop on. But I think you're good to go in either avenue, and we cannot and won't make that call for you. So just get your team together and y'all kind of get in the weeds on both of your ideas and see what you think.
The online grant portal includes many opportunities to provide narrative information and describe the project. Should we also submit a 5-page narrative proposal, or are the online narrative answers sufficient?
The system is set up that we tried to give as many character limits within each narrative area so that you could succinctly put in your project narrative into that space. But unless Tony tells me otherwise, or Sandy, I think there's nothing that would prevent you from uploading another document that would provide additional information.
Do you have scoring/rating system for the review priorities, results, demand, capacity, impact on access to credit, innovation, replicability available to see?
Those are part of our internal process. We have given you the criteria for evaluation and the percentage of the whole for the final criteria rating system. And so that's what will guide us in our rating systems, but the rating documents are internal.
Can you define demand, one of the scoring priorities? Our tribe experiences a housing shortage, overcrowding in 25% of households, and there is a high priority on expanding infrastructure, housing, and economic development per our long-range strategic plan and priorities. Do these qualify as evidence of demand?
You know, to me, they would qualify as evidence of a demand, but it's demand for housing. And I'm not sure that this is actually the best use of your time to apply for NAAF funding, because we're not doing housing applications.
Will you be sharing the total amount of funds that will be awarded this round?
I would love to, however, I'm going to not usurp my trustees because they're the ones who make the final call on exactly how much in overall funds we're going to attach to each particular area. What they have authorized me to do is just set the RFA out itself with some parameters, but I'm not going to usurp their authority and try to tell them what they're going to do. They're the ones who make the final decisions under our trust agreement that rests solely with them.
As far as limiting curriculum development, is there a percent that has to be programming versus curriculum development?
You know, I've gotten this question as long as I've ever been involved in grant making. And it's almost like, you know, some curriculum is out there and it's great, but it needs to be tweaked slightly for use with a particular audience. Some areas that you might want to work in have very limited or really not so useful curriculum. I encourage anyone who's thinking about curriculum, what we don't want to do is fund somebody sitting in a back room drafting curriculum and it never rolls out and it never touches a native farmer or rancher. That is, I'm not going to say that that curriculum isn't helpful. It's just not what we want to fund. And so you're going to have to be very specific about how much of your proposal is actually that backroom curriculum development, because what native farmers and ranchers really need is for you to come out of the back room with something in hand to assist them in growing and succeeding in their operations. They, you know, there's a lot of curriculum that's out there. A lot of it could be modified so that it better suits our audience, but anything that's 100% curriculum development, we're not going to be as interested in because there is so much that's already available that we don't use. And so please be careful in that particular arena because we are definitely more interested in making sure that it hits the street and actually is used by native farmers and ranchers to help them.
The RFA notes that there's $2 million for CDFIs available. Is this a firm cap? Is there any chance the trustees would approve more than $2 million?
I'm going to refer you to my previous answer, which is I'm not going to usurp their authority to make all final determinations about how much we're going to spend in a particular area this year. And I also have to remind folks that this is the first one. And so this is a 20-year period, 19 and counting at this point. So let's be mindful of that too, but I really am not going to step on their toes.
Do you have a sense of when the next funding round will open?
I would love it, and our team would love it if it were in 2020. But again, that's a call too that the trustees are going to make, not us. We're the ones who get things over the finish line, but they're the ones who establish our calendar around how we're going to do grant making and when they're going to decide what gets funded. And so I just encourage you to, you know, fill out our survey and let us know by email that you want a period every year or that you want the next one to be in 2020. But we would love it if it were, but that's, again, not our final call to make.
Could the funding be used for the development of an endowed chair of a sustainable agriculture department at a tribal college?
You know, I'm going to take that as a survey question input, and I'm going to let our trustees know that that emerged as an idea. Endowments and endowed chairs are things that they've talked about in their strategic planning. They just weren't ready to go there this go around. But I think send us a letter and let us know that that's of high importance to the tribal college community, kind of writ large, and you know, that's a great idea. But I'm just not sure how they would go about funding that. Whether they would make that an open competition among other tribal colleges. I mean, there's a lot of things to think about when those kinds of endowed chairs happen. So I will certainly make sure that they know that that came up as a question in today's webinar, but go ahead and follow up and send a letter to that effect as well. Great idea.
We are planning to apply to send 5 students to an 8-month training at a technical institute to train meat cutters. We will award the scholarships, and a technical college will educate these students in a certification program. Would the agricultural sciences category be the best to apply in?
It sounds to me like it might be, and I'm kind of trying to rack my brain of whether it would fall into other categories as well, but the agricultural sciences seems to me to be the clearest fit. I could be wrong. Just read the RFA very clearly, but I'll tell you straight up, in my travels, having meat cutters that are trained is a need in a lot of areas around the country. So I just do a triple read of the request for applications, but I think your intuition may be right on that.
Is it possible to work with multiple priority areas and partner? How would the funding work?
That's your job to propose to us how you would actually seamlessly put together a proposal that would work across priorities and within multiple budgets. I can't possibly answer that because I don't know what's in your mind.
Is it possible to apply for more than one area in the same application?
Yeah, it is. Be sure that they're clearly delineated. Don't leave anything to confusion or trying to interpret what you say. Just be clear.
Is it 2 million total per area or 2 million per project/application?
Again, this in some of the areas we put a pretty strong cap, and others we've left it open. So again, I'm not going to usurp the role of the trustees to decide what we're looking for our applications within these areas.
What age is considered youth?
You know, that's a really good question, and a lot of folks think youth cuts off at 18. Some people think it cuts off at 16. I just think if you're going to define youth a certain way for your particular application, then just let us know. There are some folks who consider youth to be literally 0 to 25. So it really kind of depends on how you're approaching your particular project in the youth arena. We're not going to try to fill in the blanks there. You just tell us what your cutoff within your tribe and within your project might be for what you consider to be youth, because it can be literally as broad a swath as all the way up to 25.
Can a tribe ask for 100% of the costs for a feasibility study on hemp crop production and processing?
I think there's a cap on the hemp production piece within the special emphasis, so it'll be limited by that cap. If that doesn't do the work for an entire feasibility study, then just pick the components of the study that fit within that cap, and I would suggest that might be a way to approach the application. If you already know how much the feasibility folks are going to charge you for the study, then it couldn't hurt to actually talk about it within your narrative.
Where are meetings located for which the grantee must attend? Also, where is the annual meeting being held so that we can calculate travel costs?
You know, first of all, we don't know exactly where it's going to be held. We don't even know the exact date yet. We want to have it scheduled within the first 3 to 4 months after the funds are released, so that we can get with the first group of grantees early in the process. I will tell you, if that falls within the winter months and early spring months, then we're going to have to be in a place that we're not going to potentially be thwarted from getting to because of weather. So I don't know where you are, but a good rule of thumb is travel costs being, $1,000. Most of the folks that I know who get federal monies, who actually are told to come to a grantee meeting, they usually budget anywhere from $1,000 to $1,500. So it really just, we'll do our best to choose a site that's easy to get to, but at the end of the day, it's a little early in our process to finally determine where it's going to be. But I can assure you, we do not want to have it canceled because of weather.
Should fiscally sponsored organizations have their fiscal sponsors set up the account?
I believe that's the best approach. And Tony, if she's still on the line, she might want to weigh in here as well. But the fiscal sponsor will actually be the eligible entity because it already is deemed eligible because it already has 501c3 status. So the cleanest way is to have the fiscal sponsor apply, but you need to signal early on that that fiscal sponsor is applying on behalf of an organization that hasn't reached eligible status yet. So just be very clear in your project title and in your narrative as well. But the fiscal sponsor is the lead.
One more thing about the
risk of having yeah, go ahead, weigh in here, Tony.
Okay, sorry, one more thing. Make sure that your fiscal sponsor knows that you're adding them as the lead, and the email address again becomes the username. So they need to be able to communicate with you and vice versa. So if your fiscal sponsor is a large or nonprofit, make sure that you find somebody within that organization as your fiscal sponsor contact that can get back to you in real time to make sure your application and any questions are answered timely.
That's a great additional guidance, Tony. Thanks.
We are a small tribal community with limited land base. We would like to create opportunities for the tribe and our members who are farmers and who would like to become farmers. Will the size of our project and number of farmers affect the judging of our application?
No. Everyone's going to be judged on their merits, not on the size of their tribe or the size of their land base.
This is a question we addressed before. Can you apply for multiple projects?
Yes, just be clear, very clear.
If we are a single organization that wants to apply for multiple projects over multiple categories, CDFI, tribal government, 501c3, hemp, food sovereignty, and youth, are we able to do so? If so, how is it recommended that we craft our budgets given different award limits?
Your budgets are going to have to track against the type of project that you're actually pursuing with any of your tentacles. It sounds like you have many tentacles. And so just be very, very clear about how you, and I think this goes all the way back into how you title each component so that they're easily trackable and linked up by our staff at the end of the day. And so anyone who's considering doing that, I think you should consider actually walking in our shoes so that we know exactly what you're trying to pursue, and we don't leave you don't leave anything to question. So making sure that you're very clear in your narrative and in your budget narratives and in your budgets and how you actually title your budgets, it's going to be very important.
Is aquaculture considered an eligible activity? Fish hatchery and growing fish to adult value-added fish products such as smoked?
Yes, it is.
We have a question about previous webinars that I'll address real quick. So each of the PowerPoint slides for the first, second, and third webinar are identical. So you've heard the same information here today. The question and answer period can vary, and it does vary. So we recommend that you go to our website, nativeamericanagriculturefund.org/grants-webinar, and view the last portion of those recorded webinars so that you can hear the questions and the answers. We've also pulled out the relevant ones into the updated FAQs. So again, the answer is yes, the PowerPoints are the same for all of the webinars. The Q&A section is different, and there are ways to view those recordings and make sure you didn't miss anything.
And Carly, I don't know, because I've not done it myself, whether you can actually jump to a place in the recording, but we're usually after the first hour before you actually get into the questions.
Certainly. The video is just like any YouTube video, so you can jump around in the time frame and see when we start asking questions. If you have any questions, email us at grants and we'll get you to the right spot. Please discuss the criteria required in the 10,000 character narrative.
Take another stab at actually getting a little deeper on that question, and we'll come back to it.
Can you elaborate on some examples of charitable and educational services? Would sustainable farming practices be eligible?
Well, I hope that educational is pretty self-explanatory. But I'll tell you very clearly, educational can be done, educational activities can be done in many, many ways. They can be done in classroom education, they can be done in online education, they can be done in field education, they can be done for credit, like a technical certification of some kind, or they can just be done education for education's sake. Pulling together folks for training and technical assistance can be a form of education. Charitable purposes really contemplates why you're doing it. Are you doing it as a profit-making enterprise, or are you actually doing it as a public service? And that's the best way I can describe charitable and educational in the use of those words.
We are looking to develop our tribal Department of Ag with food sovereignty programs. Tribal co-ops and hemp processing and production must a plan be submitted to USDA before submitting an application to NAAF?
Oh, heavens no. No, but hats off to you all for wanting to go in that route. There's a whole different way to approach USDA, and I think for the coming months after we get this RFA process out of the way, it's our intention to do some webinar-based walkthrough of the importance of actually having departments of agriculture and how you go about presenting your department to USDA. If you're doing that so that you can actually get their attention and get a relationship going with them as a Department of Agriculture, several on our team have experience in that space, and we're happy and looking forward to actually sharing it with others. But we're going to do that after this request for application process happens. But congratulations on moving forward in that area. It's a big step.
We are a native CDFI who did receive fast track funds. 80% of that was loan capital, and that loan capital is now fully deployed within a year of the grant term remaining. Can we apply for more loan capital? There are new objectives we'd like to include. If we can't apply again, do we have to keep that request under $2 million?
I suggest I think we actually talked about this in the request for applications itself, but the fast track grantees are not prohibited from applying in this round. They just have to make sure that what they're doing is not seeking funding for projects that they've already received funding for. But if you've deployed all of your loan capital and you're kind of embarking on a new component of the work, then that would either be a continuation or a new project, but not seeking to overlay these funds with the fast track funds you've already received. I hope that makes sense. But I think you're in the clear on that. You just need to be very specific in your narrative about how these funds would pick up where the others left off and what would be different.
Does a project focused on Native Hawaiian agriculture fall within the Native American umbrella?
It does. We have made that determination.
Are you considering cooperative development training?
Actually, we are. I'm actually having multiple conversations right now with leaders in the cooperative movement, kind of writ large. And so we are very excited about moving forward on that avenue as quickly as possible. So yes, and if you've got ideas about that particular area or things you think we should pursue, then please, let us know, send us a note, email us, and give us your thoughts.
At the very beginning, you mentioned being a 501c3. Did I hear correctly that fiscally sponsored organizations are eligible?
501c3s are clearly eligible. For those new 501c3s, folks who don't have their IRS determination letter of 501c3 status yet, they can go ahead and apply through a fiscal sponsor. The fiscal sponsor needs to have 501c3 status. And so I hope that answers the question. I think it does. But they can apply, new organizations can apply through existing 501c3s. Just let us know that you are applying through your fiscal sponsor, and the fiscal sponsor needs to be really at your elbow. You'll need to be jointly thinking about how to respond to each one of the questions in the application.
What is the maximum funding amount per educational institution?
There isn't.
Can you please explain the process of a tribe issuing a limited waiver of sovereign immunity?
We considered providing a roadmap to that ahead of time, but determined at the final analysis that we were not going to step on the toes of tribal governments themselves and having their own unique way that each one of them as governmental entities determine how they're going to grant us a limited waiver of sovereign immunity. It's not something that we can choose to not comply with because it is a written component requirement in the trust agreement itself. But we're not going to presume to tell you, the tribal government, what that limited waiver needs to look like. We're going to leave it to you all to get with your lawyers and your leadership and determine what the limited waiver looks like. Does it come in the form of a resolution? Does it come in the form of a letter? We're not going to tell a tribal government what to do in that regard, but we are going to need for it to be in hand, and it needs to be limited to the amount of the grant that you're seeking.
If we receive the fast track funding, is priority given to other tribal organizations that we may be submitting for another project that was not funded through fast track funds?
I'm not sure I understand that question. It sounds like you were a fast track fund recipient. You're not precluded from applying, but it has to be a continuation or a new project. If you submitted for a project that wasn't funded in the fast track, there would be nothing that would, if it falls within the categories that we're looking for, it would not be prohibited from being submitted this time at all. I hope I've touched on that. If I haven't, let us know by email.
Even if they aren't prohibited, is there an idea of priority going to new applicants versus those who were awarded fast track?
What we're wanting to see for this round is we're not going to prohibit fast track recipients from applying, but we are looking for new applicants, and we're looking for new ideas and new organizations that can become a part of the grantee pool. But we're not going to say we're not accepting. We will accept applications from fast track grantees. We just put limitations around what you can apply for.
What is the cap for the feasibility study for hemp production? I'm not seeing it in the RFA.
It's 75,000.
Do I need to use all the characters or be concise? Is this a total recitation of the entire proposal that is described in other sections? And that's in reference to the 10,000 character question before.
What we tried to do was give you enough characters to be able to say what you need to say and tell us the story of what you need to tell us. If you can do it in 4,000 characters, then carry on. We're happy with that. Just make sure you've covered all the bases and that you've been as good to yourself in terms of explaining exactly what your project is all about. There have been many times in my grant life that I've submitted things well under the limitation on characters. Just, read through what you submit multiple times before you submit it for that final time. And just make sure it covers all your bases. And we don't care that you come all the way to the 10,000 limit.
We are the Tribes LLC, and we're applying under the Tribes umbrella in one category, and the Painted Horse Diabetes Project may apply under another category under the tribe. Do we have to apply in the same application, or are we able to apply separately under the auspices of the tribe?
I'm not sure what the diabetes project is, whether it's another instrumentality of the tribe. We may not have enough information in that particular example to be able to give you a clear answer. Sorry. We may need more information, and if you want to email us with more information about your example, then we're happy to respond. We get a lot of email questions anyway, and we have a process for responding to them internally and doing the turnaround on our answers very quickly. So just send us an email, and we will find out more information.
Is there an indirect cost rate included?
15% is our limit on indirects.
There's a follow-up to the question about the diabetes program. They may want to do a food growing application.
Again, I'm still not sure that we have enough on the type of the entity that it is. So just go offline and send us an email for sure. And anyone on the webinar is, we're happy to entertain offline emails just in the normal course. So if we haven't quite gotten there with the answer to you today, in the interest of hearing as many questions as we can, then just send us a separate email and we'll get you an answer to your technical questions as quickly as we can.
With that, I'd like to invite you, if you're still on the line and have a question, please submit it now, as we've reached the end of the questions already submitted. While we're waiting for any last minute additions, I'll remind you that you can find all of this information online at nativeamericanagriculturefund.org/grants. When you go there, the first button you're going to see is the download the full RFA PDF. It's a little over 20 pages. We encourage you to read that through multiple times. It includes every detail that you need to know. After that, decide whether you're going to do an online application or a written application. If it's online, please go to the second button where you can start your online application with the email address being your username and get set up in the system. The third button you'll see at the top of that grants page is the entire application question set. As Tony said earlier, check that out before you make an account, just so you understand what we're asking for you in the grant application. Lower down on that page, you'll see lots of different sections, including the FAQs, where you can look at all the frequently asked questions and our updates as of 8/30/19. We'll be updating with Q&A from today and from September 17th. You can also register for that September 17th webinar. As stated before, it'll be a condensed PowerPoint presentation with more time for questions. And I would like to point you finally to our email and phone resource. If you need to reach us by phone, please call 479-445-6226. We're putting that up on the slide pretty soon. And if you need to reach us by email, please reach out to grants@nativeamericanagriculturefund.org, where we will attempt to get back to your question as soon as we can. Some questions are easily answered and others require us to dig a little deeper. So thank you for your patience as we give to you the most accurate answer. Do we have any more questions come in? Let's see. Will this webinar, including the Q&A session, be available after today? Yes. This webinar will be available online starting tomorrow morning. It is in the YouTube format. So if you go to our website now, you'll see webinar number 1 and webinar number 2 recorded, and you can watch through those. And this one will be available starting tomorrow morning. Any other questions? Please do submit. With that, I'll just emphasize, as Janie did, the deadline is September 30th at 11:59 p.m. Central Daylight Time. That's both for online applications and written applications need to be postmarked by that date and time.
And we will not accept applications after that time period. So just put it in bright red letters on your calendar. And we've had great questions today. I want to thank everybody for staying the entire time and submitting such great questions. If we haven't gotten to one of your questions, then please just email us at grants@nativeamericanagriculturefund.org, and we will get on it right away. Carly, is that it?
We have no more questions.
All right.
It's up to you, Jane.
All right, let's close it down then. Thank you all very much for being on the call today, and we look forward to receiving your applications, and let us know how we can help. Thanks.